We very much try to move quickly. We're really, on a rocket ship right now. We grew over 50% last year. We expect to grow another 50% plus this year. We're
Amazing.
over $100 million run rate, growing, faster than others, bigger than others in our space. The industry in North America is, around $75 billion. So it's a huge industry that we're just scratching the surface on.
And welcome to the Venture to Victory podcast, where we look at the entrepreneurial journey from startup to exit. And we've got a great one today with my guest, Jeff Grass, CEO and founder of the Hungry Marketplace, sometimes known as Hungry. But that's just kind of the tail end of many, many ventures. And so we're going to talk about that, what Jeff has learned that he can share so that maybe someone out there is struggling in their current venture, or they're thinking about jumping off the corporate treadmill into the entrepreneurial world. Jeff's going to have some thoughts and advice, and we're really excited to have you. So welcome, Jeff, to the podcast.
Thanks, Tim. I'm excited to be here. Appreciate it.
Well, great. Well, I'm really excited because this is a technology company that you've started, one of many. It's a little bit different from some of your others because of the industry it's in, which is food, resonates deeply with me and probably many other people. And so I'm pumped to have you on board. I like to do an introduction because not everybody's familiar with all our guests. And that's part of the value of doing a podcast, get a little more exposure. So I'm going to run through that really quickly. And here we go. Jeff Grass. You're a four-time founder who's built, scaled, and exited multiple tech companies. And today you're leading one, Hungry, in the fastest growing food tech marketplace in the United States. You're the chairman and CEO of Hungry, as we just mentioned, sometimes called Hungry Marketplace, which is a hospitality platform that connects businesses with top local chefs, caterers, restaurants to deliver a high-end experience in the workplace, providing meals and events for primarily business clients. Since launching Hungry, which has expanded nationally, it's served millions of meals, partners with thousands of chefs, and earned some pretty incredible recognition as both the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies and on the list of the Deloitte Fast 500. Those are pretty amazing for a lot of people that aren't in this industry. Those are some of the best startup awards that you can get. I actually served on the Deloitte Fast 50 in California for many years as kind of I don't call him a judge, but like a screener to get to that point. Before Hungry, as we mentioned earlier, you co-founded Pay My Bills, Buy Safe, and Live Safe. Buy Safe, by the way, I always looked for the logo. So I remember that going way back. And each of those three entities or experiences kind of addressed trust, safety, and infrastructure challenges in large markets. And you had a bunch of exits along the way. But the theme of those companies, no doubt, found their way into Hungry some way. We're going to talk about that. You also, like a lot of my guests, serve on multiple boards. You actively mentor founders, which is a theme that great entrepreneurs who have been around and had multiple exits tend to want to give back. And that reflects your belief that leadership extends beyond just kind of what you're doing at a company. Jeff holds a Bachelor's of Science in Economics from the Wharton School, as well as an MBA as well from Wharton, perhaps disproving the old adage that if you want to get an MBA from a top school, you shouldn't go there as an undergrad, which is kind of funny. We've always seen that when I applied to MBA schools, we had all these different discussions around that. But what a great background. Jeff, I really understated that bio. I tried to do a good job, but when you go to LinkedIn and you look at all the credentials and all the different things that you do, it's definitely an understatement. I feel like I haven't accomplished anything in my life when I look at that. So that's pretty incredible. But I wanted to start off this discussion a little bit differently. And I wanted to talk a bit about philosophy. And the reason I'm doing this is I do a lot of research on my guests. And of course, I always start with the LinkedIn profile to get a 40,000 foot overview. And as a recruiter, we lived on LinkedIn. I always look at the about section because that is generally the author. It's very interesting what it reflects, what they want to share with the world. And yours, again, it stood out as being so different. First of all, you start off, I'm just going to read this. I believe purpose-driven, people, customer-centered, and goal-oriented organizations will succeed. Big ideas are hard to achieve, but I relentlessly pursue them with courage, conviction, and positivity. And then you go on to discuss, which I've never seen before, your belief about the future for your two children, which is very different. I also know that you have a philanthropic activities with Hungry, providing meals. And it resonated with me a little bit. If you ever listen to Tony Robbins speak, he always talks about how when he had nothing, someone brought them a turkey dinner, and now his goal is to feed 1 billion people. It's a big vision. I thought that was pretty cool. But this idea of, caring about your children, putting maybe other people first. I guess a couple years ago, we would have called it um, a servant leadership philosophy. A lot of times that comes from how you were raised from your parents and your family, or something that you went through in your life that caused you to rethink, this is not the way I want my life to turn out, and I'm going to make some changes. I'd love to learn a little bit about your philosophy, why you put that stuff in the about section, and how that has really influenced how you've built and designed all these companies over the years.
Yeah, great question, and thank you for the lead in. It's humbling. Um, uh, 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 I do believe that. I mean, it's a little bit selfish as well, but I think building a company that can have a positive impact on the world while also trying to make it successful is kind of really much more motivating to me than and I think for the teams and the people that are behind us trying to make it happen than if it's just purely all about the business, right? And so with Hungry, we definitely set out to how can we structure this in a way that we're giving back as we're building the business, and so more success drives more positive impact on the world. I also think that I've tried to be very purpose driven, very thoughtful, very intentional around the type of environment we're fostering here at Hungry. We have 9 core values that we very much live by. That that I view as like our ingredients to success. It kind of helps define the type of environment we're trying to create, like how we want to all operate together. It just helps us all just row in the same direction and and operate, from kind of a similar playbook. And so, focusing on some of the softer sides of things, I guess, the more culture side and the more mission and values sides of things, I think is a really important sort of starting point for ultimately, setting the stage for hopefully building a successful company.
So I have to imagine that when you're hiring people, that has to be at the top of the priority list when looking at individuals, even beyond competence and capability and history. I'd imagine those values, like if the person doesn't share those or wherever they fall in that matrix of those nine, I don't know how many of the nine you have to personally believe it, if it's all nine or half of them are the ones that are most important. I have to think that in hiring, that is something that's really critical to the culture of your company.
It is, and, I pretty much bring it up every interview, where anytime I'm interviewing somebody, and I do say if you review the 9, and if they don't motivate you, if they don't resonate with you, you should not come here, and that's okay, it's no judgment, and there's people have different preferences, but I do think it's pretty critical, because I think about hiring, yeah, for us, it's pretty simple, I guess, when I think about hiring. It's 4 main factors. It's skill, will, fit, and intellectual curiosity are kind of the 4 areas that I look at. And fit, is part of that, right? So fit,
Mhm.
are you aligned with our culture and our mission and our values is obviously a critical component.
So let's talk about why you started Hungry, because the other companies were more pure. I'd say they're more pure tech companies in terms of this is the food business. You've got physical product that has to be prepared and made and delivered. I don't want to call it the Uber Eats of the corporate B2B world. I'm thinking were preceded Uber Eats. I'm not really sure. I think so, or maybe they started to evolve around the same time. But why this business compared to all the other things you've done? Because again, it's a big scale operation. Yeah, I think about the challenge to go into a new city. You've got to understand, who the providers are, the chefs, the restaurants, the caterers. You've got to have the infrastructure to be able to pick up and organize food. And this isn't like, I order it and gets there, like Amazon. You want it between, 11 and 3 or 4 and 9, right? It's like we're having lunch at 12. It better be there, it better be delicious, and it better be hot. That seems to me like a big change in what you did in the past. What's a little bit of the origin of why you started Hungry?
Yeah, it's funny. People always ask you, "Did you come from the food industry?" And is that you have a background there? And I shared my first job ever. I was a cook for Kentucky Fried Chicken, actually, and
Really?
uh, worked for 6 months in the kitchen, slaving away, like making fried chicken. And I swear I would never work in food again after that. It was the worst job ever. And I didn't until helping, found Hungry. With Hungry, I actually have to give the credit for the original part of the core of the idea to my co-founder, Iman. So he really came up with the idea and the brand name. If it was me, my 2 previous businesses you mentioned were Buy Safe and Live Safe, and I probably would have called it Food Safe because it was, not very inventive there. But
Yeah.
But he came up with this original concept of trying to tap into local cooks, local chefs, and providing more authentic, ethnic, types of food was the original idea. And then we evolved it from more of a direct to consumer play, like a DoorDash or Uber Eats, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, similar concept, but for workplace food in many ways.
So when you first went out to raise money for this, what was the blowback that you got? Because again, I can imagine a lot of investors saying, "This is a really difficult business. How scalable is this really?" I can see it being scalable within a city, but how do I get into 5, 10, 20? Did you get a lot of pushback or they're like, "Hey, this is greatest thing since sliced bread. Here's a bunch of dough."
Well, it's funny, the original concept of more of a direct to consumer play was what we raised our first million and a half seed money on.
Mm.
And so we actually saw a lot of this excitement around it. We launched it, and with month in, we realized, oh my gosh, like the cost of delivery are eating us alive. We're going to have to really build a ton of scale to make this, really work at a city level, like you said. But we got a couple orders. We got one for like 30 people and then one for 40 people. And we thought it was like somebody fat fingered the order or it was a tech issue. And so we called them. We're like, hey, did you mean three, not 30? And they're like, "No, no, 30." And we're like, What? Why would you want 30 meals?" Well, I tried you guys and I loved it, and I order our Friday lunches in the office, and so I'm gonna order for the whole office." And we're like, "Oh my gosh, like, we deliver 30 meals at a time, we can make money doing this versus, 1 or 2 meals at a time." So we quickly, actually within 30 days, pivoted the entire strategy of the business to catering and B2B. Um, we didn't know anything about catering, to be honest, but as entrepreneurs, you have a lot of irrational positivity, and you're like, we can figure it out. And so I remember calling some of our early investors and say, hey, want to give you an update. And they're like, yeah, how's that idea? So excited about it. I ordered on it last week, and like, oh, we're going to shut that down, and we're going to go into catering. And they're like, uh, okay, like, what do you know about catering? Actually, I don't know anything about catering, but we're gonna go do that. And they're like, "Give me my money back." And I'm like, "No, no, no, like, trust me,
Give me my money back. I love that.
trust me, it's all gonna work out fine." So that's kinda how we got started, and some of the early investor feedback. We did get, to your point, a lot of pushback. Actually, we believed strongly as we built Hungry that we needed to own the delivery and the service. That making it reliable, providing a VIP level of service was going to be a critical part of our service offering. And the VC pushback was no, 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 you can't scale that quickly. You need to outsource that. You need to use like third parties or rely on the chefs of the restaurants. And so it was surprising how much pushback we got on that, but we kind of held to our own and said, no, we have to own that. And it's a big, big differentiator for us today. Most of our competitors, rely on either, the restaurant for the delivery or a 3PL to do it. And we get far better, quality control and reliability and service out of it.
Do you feel like that makes your business in particular highly defensible? Because it is hard to scale and you do need capital. As you said, you've got to deliver a certain level of experience and it's extremely timely. Usually when you get something, it's not only timely, but it's got to be delivered, like I said, fresh, hot, perfect, and delicious. Or it's like a restaurant, right? You can go to a restaurant 10 times and have a wonderful experience. Then you have a terrible experience on the 11th and you try something else.
It won't go back. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
exactly. It is one of the areas of differentiation and defensibility. We've invested a tremendous amount in our technology platform. We call it the Hungry OS or the Hungry Operating System. And so that
I
really
love that.
allows us to run the business in a very reliable, very scalable, very cost efficient way that helps us ensure, those high levels of consistent success. But yeah, it is an operationally intense business, and we've actually doubled down on that. We do now more than just catering or group order. We do live events, we do office market and pantry solutions. And so we've become the only company in our space that is comprehensive, can do it all, and makes for more operational complexity, but also can lead to a even better, ultimate solution for clients. There's a lot of powerful things you can do as you bring all those different pieces together under a single service offering. And so we've kind of embraced it, rather than run from the complexity, I guess.
Well, I also noticed that, the cities that you're in seem to be the cities where Waymo and Cybercab are evolving. And so I can see that as another natural part of delivery, particularly food delivery, having the automated autonomous cars driving from point A to point B.
Yeah, perhaps, perhaps. For us, we also love the on-site service elements of it too. We
Yeah.
do free cleanup services and things, so we'll have to add some of, Elon's, robots to it as well to help with that part.
Yeah, it'll be delivered by a catering by robots in the catering business. They're serving the meals and everything. We'll see if it gets to that. That may take away from the personal experience,
Yes.
when the chef himself is, an AI. What I love about your story, and this is so classic of entrepreneurs, is that the idea they're often funded with shifts. I had a podcast guest a couple weeks ago. This company was just valued at $1.2 billion,
Amazing.
and they started, and then COVID hit, and they started as kind of like a online travel tech company, and it completely shifted to an entirely new business. So, and I had another a guest on a week or two ago when I was asking what's the best advice he could give to an entrepreneur, he said, "Just get started,"
Yeah.
right? Because you never know where it's gonna go, but you have to take that first step and have, like you said, the faith and the courage that the team will figure out. And this is a perfect example of you start out with one thought, and then all of a sudden the market starts telling you something different that you never thought about. And you have the ability to shift and be agile to do that. When investors are saying, "Give me my money back. That's not the game I was going to get into." Now
Yep.
today they probably love you. And they want
Yeah.
to they want to
Absolutely.
invest more money. So that's super exciting. Where is this company going, do you say, in terms of what is the potential in terms of scope, reach, size, valuation? What's kind of the big game plan? Because you've been at it for a while. It takes a lot of expertise that you gain. And then it seems like then it's now a matter of we know what to do. It's just city by city by city by city.
Yes, so we've had to, go through, a variety of sort of challenges like you mentioned and be willing to kind of pivot quickly. To your point of, like, just get started. We very much try to, like, move quickly, make decisions, like, let's test stuff, let's try stuff, and then it's okay to make a mistake. We do lots of postmortems here to try to, quickly learn from, what if we make a mistake, why did that happen, and how do we, course correct going forward. But I agree that bias towards action, I think, is critical, kind of skill for an entrepreneur. In terms of Hungary and where we're going, we're really, on a rocket ship right now. We grew over 50% last year. We expect to grow another 50% plus this year.
Oh, wow.
We're over
Amazing.
$100 million run rate as a business.
Incredible.
We're kind of growing, faster than others in our space. We're bigger than others in our space, but we're only scratching the surface. The workplace food industry in North America is, estimated around $75 billion. So it's a huge industry that we're just scratching the surface on. So I think there's a ton of opportunity for us to continue to kind of scale the business. So for us, you'll see us continuing to grow very quickly, organically. We're becoming more of a national and cross-border solution. We're in both the U.S. and Canada, and so it allows us to serve our clients, much more effectively, large national clients with many different offices. And then we're also seeing lots of opportunities to be a consolidator. So we've been able to make a handful of acquisitions that have, um, been able to absorb, different competitors, and we think there'll be more opportunity for that, in the future as well.
Yeah, I think your name is great. That idea of just go to Hungry, just go to Amazon, right? Just go to DoorDash. It's more like, let's go to the platform first, and then we'll see who's on the platform because I don't want to leave my house, right? I want the convenience of whether it's a B2B convenience, setting up a big meeting for people, or it's just, I want something delivered to my home. I don't want to go out on the rainy night. I'm going to go to the platform, and that's going to be the marketplace I'm going to go to. Nothing beyond, unless I have a one-off favorite restaurant that delivers to me. So I really love that idea, and I love the name. It does really, resonate, very well, very well. Plus, the B2B side, as you said, you made the shift. That's where the money is really, right? Corporations, they have budgets, and they have big orders, and that's never gonna really change. Even in downtimes, yeah, they do cut costs, but there's still budgets there. The consumer side, in a down market, the consumers basically shut it off, but the corporations they still have to feed people, they still have to have events, they have to take care of their clients.
Oh, yeah, and there's so much pain and hassle with trying to do it too. I mean, that was kind of the early realization we had, was that corporate America was investing more and more every year in bringing in food and beverage to the office. There's a lot of good reasons for it. It drives productivity, enhances culture, right? There's a good ROI on investing in food. But if you're the office manager tasked with okay, bring in lunch every day for the team. It's miserable. You're trying to call a different restaurant every day because nobody wants to eat Panera over and over and over again, right?
Right.
And you're trying to educate, effectively a different supplier. Okay, this is what we need. These are the food allergies and dietary restrictions. Like this is how where security. This is where the loading dock is. This is how to get through security. Like you're re-educating every day, and so it just leads to lots of challenges. And then the suppliers, like the restaurants or traditional caterers, were never designed around providing food for an office, and so there's a real
Yeah.
mismatch between the needs of the buyer of food solutions for the office and just the structure of the industry that's there to kind of serve them. And so that's really what kind of set us down the path of like, hey, we could create a platform that is a single place that can really do it all for them, make sure we're vetting and quality controlling the different food partners that are on the platform, do the delivery, make sure it's consistent, like we know where it's all done. They don't have to even think about it. They just review and approve menus and we'll kind of handle it from there. And so it's really designed to just take a lot of the friction and pain out of it and make it smooth and seamless.
But also seems like it provides a lot of variety for people. I know when I was in the corporate world for, 25, 30 years, it was always the same place, like the sandwich shop. The idea of going to a higher end place or a certain type of cultural cuisine, like these were kind of out of reach unless you built out one-off relationships. So it's great to have a place where you can go to where there's tremendous variety. So if anyone's watching this and you just happen to get a job and your boss says, get meal for the office, just go to Hungary if you're in one of those
That's
cities.
right.
You're gonna look like
Tryhungry.com.
you're
That's
gonna look
right.
like a you're gonna look like a superhero on your first day. They're gonna be amazed and blown away by what you can do,
I
and it's
love
all
you.
the power of Jeff and his partner and their team's effort. Well, let's shift a little bit because Hungary's amazing, but you've done a lot of other amazing things too. You've had, I said, we just talked about 4 companies. I'm sure there's been more experiences. You've raised venture capital, A, B, C rounds for a variety of these. For companies that are out there today, one of the first struggles that any company has in making it is getting funding. And of course, people bootstrap and they try to, if they have the ability to push up the funding later on to avoid dilution and keep more control and equity shares and so on. What's some advice that you would give to people about going out for funding, the best way, to achieve that? Should you do it early, like the Warren Buffett method, raise the money when you don't need it? Should you do that? Should you wait till you get far along down the road? And from your experiences over many decades, has the process of raising money changed significantly in 2025 and 2026 versus maybe 10 or 15 years ago?
Yeah. Um, so, it's hard to give like a one size fits all answer to like when did you start raising money as an entrepreneur. I think generally you want to try to avoid it as long as you can because the further you can push your idea forward, you can build the product, you can have a customer, you can have revenue. Like these are all proof points that will make the fundraising process much easier and will lead to better results, better valuations, and things like that. It's funny. I think in some ways we almost went back to raise money really early because and it goes through cycles, but sometimes the cycles are you can just kind of get going a little too fast, if you will. But but also depends on the type of business and the business model. Some business models just require a lot of capital up front to kind of build the initial technology, and so that will be something that helps dictate when and where. In terms of raising money, it's a really inefficient process, to be honest. Right? It's this matchmaking process of generally the entrepreneur reaching out, trying to get in front of different investors, trying to figure out which investor is interested in this industry, this type of business, and what do they value, and so how do you kind of make sure you're articulating the value of the business correctly. There's been some changes, like there's more syndicates and things like that. I think that sometimes are things that will syndicate opportunities that are different than in the earlier days of me raising money, but it still is a fairly inefficient process. That said, as an entrepreneur, I've gone from in my earlier companies, I used to dread having to go raise because it just felt like it's a huge time suck, not, focused on the business. People keep criticizing my idea.
Endless criticism.
Everybody's telling me no. Somewhere along the way, it kind of I flipped it, and I was like, you know what? This is a super valuable opportunity to talk to a lot of pretty educated people who are pattern recognizing, like seeing lots of other companies and pitches, and giving me a lot of objective, independent feedback on my business model and how I'm articulating my business. So you know, I think if you embrace it as this is a phenomenal opportunity for me to stop and get, true feedback on the business and what we're even focusing on. And it helps you recalibrate, helps you make sure you're articulating your story well and effectively. And if you're not, you're probably not going to raise money, but that's the whole point, right? Is that you need to be able to, build a story and have a value prop that makes a lot of sense. And so I've tried to really, frame it as this is a good opportunity. Let's go, make the most of it. But it still takes a lot of time and it's a bit of a process. And the more you do it, the more success you've had it, like, certainly the easier it gets. The hardest is for the first time you're raising money, but it's never quite as easy as it looks, from the outside.
Nor is building a business from the startup. No matter how easy you think it's gonna be, multiply that by 10, and then you have the story. You always hear these stories, particularly when I talk to folks on this podcast in particular, because so many of the people my guests on this pod have done 3, 4, 5 companies with exits, and they've been doing it for decades. So, usually, or sometimes, I would say more frequently, there was something that happened at some point with one of these companies that changed the trajectory of how they either look at the world or how they look at building companies. Sometimes it was literally they're on the verge of death or some externality like a COVID or something. Was just a natural progressive thing for you being an entrepreneur and continuing to start companies? Or did something happen during one of these in which you said, I'm never going to do this again this way? And here's the light, the halos come over and it's parted from the heavens and I know my direction.
Yeah. I think you absolutely get smarter, wiser, as you go. For me, it's mostly from like doing it the wrong way the first time and then learning, okay, here's a different way. But like a focus on culture and mission is something that I didn't do at all in my first company. I think a key learning for me with my second business was not to be so wedded to the idea, that we started with, but more like listen to the market, react to what customers are telling you, react and learn and constantly adapt. And so challenge your ideas, not yourself, right? And I felt like I think I was too like they were too intertwined.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's interesting as an entrepreneur, like you need to have a lot of like most people are going to tell you it's not going to work, right? So you've got to be willing to take those shots and keep going and keep plowing forward, but you can't be like oblivious to the feedback of the market, right? And because if you are, you'll just keep butting your head against the wall as opposed to learning, okay, here's better ways to do it. And so you've got to be able to find that balance between, not giving up and the fortitude to keep going, but also flexibility along the way.
Yeah.
It's but yeah, I'd say there's lots of learnings I could share along those lines, but I'm not sure there's been a point yet where the heavens have parted and I know how to do this now really, really well. And so I'm waiting for that moment, but not quite yet.
Well, maybe that would be number 5 or number 6 if you wanna
Yeah.
keep on going. But that's a really believe it or not, that's a very common, point of discussion that's come up in a lot of these podcasts where the serial founder will say, "Number 1 most important thing, do not fall in love with your idea." So and again, I think they all say that because they were in love at one
Yeah.
point with their idea, and it got railroaded, and they realized that, maybe being tied to the team like you said, or tied to a philosophy that allows you a sense of openness to discover new things is a better approach. And maybe we should build a company up that way because we don't know what's going to happen in the market. We don't know when an externality is coming or a change in technology or a COVID or a personal crisis, right? Agility is probably maybe more important than the actual idea itself.
And I think it's focusing more on the problem and like how clearly do you understand the problem? How intimately do you understand the problem that you're solving for your customer? As opposed to like wedded to your solution, right? So like
Yeah.
once you really understand the problem, then okay, let me map a solution to that and then constantly iterate on it. How do I make it better, better, better? Is yeah, it's more of a better orientation.
How old are your children today, if you don't mind sharing? Are they older? Or they you don't need exact dates, but are they like teenagers, young kids, post
Yeah.
college?
No, we started a little later in life. So I have a 13-year-old and 11-year-old. So we're
Well, congratulations. Well, I have
approaching.
4 and I didn't start until I was 40, so you can do the math on that one. So I come from that. And that's the reason I'm asking because I love to ask this question of seasoned people that have had a lot of life and business experience, as you and I both have, which is I'm sure you're thinking too, the world's changing so quickly. It used to be become a developer. Now vibe coding's in. Now vibe coding's out and the AI is going to vibe its own thing for you. Where do
Right.
I go? Can I still be a radiologist? Do I become a developer? Are robots going to be doing construction work? To try to understand like how I would guide my young children around the future, I'm sure you've thought of that a little bit. And how would you advise maybe not your kids, but maybe young kids who are in those teenage years, in those college years, or just coming out of college, who are trying to figure out where do I even begin in this world that is changing so quickly? Any thoughts on that at all?
I think it's a great question. It's so hard to be a child these days, right? Because like everything's changing so fast. Like technology makes it so hard, and I think that's for society in general too, right? So most people, even in our age, right, aren't still doing the same career they started with, right? Or they started down their first job out of college is totally different than what they're doing today. And I think that will be the case, for the younger generation as well. It's just going to be much much faster, right? It's going to be cycling through much quicker.
Yeah.
I think at the core, it's, try to find something you're passionate about, right? And sort of pursue a passion if it's a certain industry or type of role. Uh, and just, I think, your ability to be a good problem solver, to be, thinking about things and developing solutions around things. Like there's certain things that will universally apply, I think, going forward. And so whether you're solving it by coding a solution or you're using AI or something else, I think those are things that and those are the qualities that I think we value the most in our team as well here at Hungary is who's got a lot of intellectual curiosity, who's going to be curious enough to try to ask questions and go think a little bit deeper and be able to like find out what's the root cause of things and then develop solutions around those things as opposed to just superficially go through life and not really think deeply or really push things to a deeper level.
Yeah, I think it was Ray Kurzweil or maybe Peter Diamandis was saying that we're going to get to the point when we'll know when the singularity occurs because human beings will no longer have the ability to ask the right questions to even seek the answers, and that's when it's gonna happen. So, I don't know. The other thing I love what you're saying, I totally agree with it. The thing I would maybe add my own perspective, which I tell my own kids, is everything's changing, technology, AI is gonna do a lot of different things, but people still wanna interact with other human beings. So, if you can put yourself in a position where you are involved with other human beings, understanding how they think, building networks, building relationships, at least you're hedging your bets for future opportunities because an AI is going to give you a lot less opportunities than someone that goes to lunch with you and really likes you and takes you under their wing. So never forget the power if you have a personality to try to build friendships, build relationships, and understand that ultimately our humanity will only move forward if it's because we're connected to each other.
I think that makes a ton of sense. I think actually, you can apply that to business too strategically. I think if you think about, a world with AI, we're either going to end up your business strategy is either on efficiency, right? Like using technology to drive things make it super efficient,
Higher
or
productivity. Yeah.
human connectivity, human connection, I think is going to be the other kind of dimension where I think you can build really interesting businesses. And so it's not necessarily an efficiency play, but more of like how do you bring people together? How do you make them feel special? And it's an area that, that Hungary really tries to focus on is, how do we deliver happiness and well-being to the workplace and do that in a way that, makes it special.
Well, there's very few things in life that make people more happy than eating a delicious meal. I mean, think about it. That's one of the greatest joys of life is a meal and getting something that's different and that you really enjoy. So it's
And
good to
sharing
be
that with
kind
the
of at
work.
the center of that. And I don't know if the Optimus robots are going to be, enjoying an Indian cuisine or something like that. Maybe oil and a quick charge will turn them on. But yeah, so I think ironically, having landed in the food industry, whether it was by accident or partial design, that may be the greatest defensibility that you have in your business is that people love to eat. They're always going to eat. And what a great place to be. Yeah.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, I always end this podcast because it's called Venture to Victory with a single question. And that question for you is what does it mean for you, whether in business or life in general, to truly be victorious?
I think it's happiness. And that's what I wish for my kids as well is, you need to enjoy the journey. And I think, people, you should not become an entrepreneur because you want to get rich. You need to enjoy the process. You need to enjoy the journey. And And I think that's where, kind of my thinking around find something you're passionate about, find something that makes you fulfilled and gives you joy and happiness. And so I think that is above all else, where you need to start.
Well, I would add, with all seriousness here, not only in terms of podcast guests, but I obviously, running a recruiting firm, have interviewed thousands of people over the years, and you truly seem happy. I know you
Oh,
have your moments. You can't start 4 startup companies and not have your moments of anxiety and despair, but
there
you
are now
do your energy does come off as fulfilled and happy, and that's a wonderful thing, and so I'm so happy that you joined as a guest today.
thank you, Tim. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Me too. Thanks, guys. That's a wrap. Cheers.
The Venture to Victory podcast is provided by MatchStar Venture Search. If you're interested in any of our open executive roles or need help sourcing world class talent for your company, check out our website at matchstar.com.